Someone's gonna be mad that I haven't played it yet. Anyway, hello! I've played many games in my life, slowly ticking off the list of games I've always wanted to play, but as with anyone else, I have the dreaded backlog of games. I'll admit, I've judged people who had 300 games on Steam and was like, why spend all that money if you're never gonna touch it? Until I had a pile of games that I spent all that money on and never touched. So to finally force myself to tackle my skyscraper of a backlog, I'm going to be playing a game that I probably wouldn't ever touch if it weren't for this video. Super Paper Mario. It's not like the most controversial thing out there, but I've been on the fence about this game for a while. The premise being that I've played the first two Paper Marios. I liked the first one, really loved the second one, didn't play the rest for some reason. According to the internet, I should be avoiding sticker art and color splash like the poison mushroom, which, hey, it's not my right to judge a game before trying it, but it seems like no one ever talks about the black sheep of the series, or at least the internet isn't loud about it. I already knew going in that it wasn't going to be your typical Mario RPG battle system, but I'll never know if I like the different mechanics until I actually play it for myself. I know that putting expectations on a game might hinder the experience itself, so I'm going into this game pretty much with a neutral eye, with some slight bias. Also, spoilers, but that shouldn't be a surprise. So, this is my overview of Super Paper Mario. Wow, I'm easily impressionable. Wait, wow, this game is surprisingly immersive. For expecting nothing, I'm still blown away by the amount of polish that feels like classic Paper Mario. Even the sound effects and the font are lifted from the 1000-Year Door to ease in fans. I like when new iterations have little callbacks to previous titles. It makes the change just a little less intimidating. Since I already like Mario platformers, this new action RPG wasn't an immediate turnoff for me. They're not as in-depth as the turn-based formula, but so far I don't hate it. I came to the realization that I am so stupid. I literally cannot solve simple puzzles because my brain is not big enough for these advanced techniques. I used the flipping mechanic a lot because I'm paranoid that I might miss an item, which is strange because I didn't actually use many items, at least early on. The most I've used were like the healing items because I'm bad at platforming. There were a variety of combat items, but I don't know. I just kept relying on the weird jumping physics, which I'm still terrible at. Can I just say how amazingly over the top the story is? I've accepted that Paper Mario stories walk the fine line of being absurd enough to feel like an actual story, but not taking itself too seriously. You know what I mean? Like, the energy of the classic Paper Mario story is still stronger than ever. The dialogue is already just so Paper Mario and I love it. Already in the first chapter, the scene suddenly changes from your typical green grass to this dark monochromatic world where Koopas are getting brainwashed and I'm like, oh, this is gonna be interesting. The section where I was enslaved into manual labor was eye-opening to say the least. They really wanted me to earn all those rubies. I was like, am I actually gonna spend all this time making arbitrary currency? You know, it really got me thinking. What if Mimi's slave chamber is comparable to our own world? All we ever do is wake up, work, earn money, survive, and repeat. We basically do the same routine every day. But for what? Why try to earn money if it just as quickly slips away from you? Why are we trying to satisfy this imaginary number that is never truly satisfied? What is the point of this endless grind that we're forced into and eventually die in? Why do we do what we do? Then you finally pay it off and the actual game resumes. Yay! I actually respect that they went there in a Mario game, like actually depicting slave labor. So I'm intrigued to see what else this game throws at me. Okay, so now I'm at the tail end of Chapter 5. I finished up Merlee's mansion, infiltrated the Fort of Francis, embarrassingly got lost in outer space, and left off in the depths of this cave. Can I also say how terrifying Spider Mimi is? I don't have a phobia against spiders, but I did not appreciate being chased down while also trying to navigate a mansion. Francis also makes me uncomfortable because of how close it hits home. I feel like this chapter is calling out a certain kind of dedicated folk. Not that I'm part of that group. I don't have like several plushies of a certain Nintendo character. No, I'm not that weird. Moving on. Space was spacious. And that maze came out of nowhere and I almost got lost, but kind of a forgettable chapter. There is so much going on in the story. More brainwashing, Count Bleck's minions arguing, mysterious dialogue in between each chapter, and of course what's happening to our main characters. I mean, it's good that there are layers to the story, but there are so many characters to keep track of, and honestly, Count Bleck's minions get the short end of the stick. They feel like nothing but boss fights, and their interactions with each other don't feel substantial enough. Except Nastasia. She's starting to become more involved in the story. I like that. Speaking of bosses, they are indeed underwhelming. I'm not sure if it's a staple for Mario to always beat bosses by jumping on them, but that seems to be the case here. You might need to use a pixel here and there, but it mostly boils down to jump on them and don't get hit. These fights don't feel any different from the bosses of the new Super Mario Bros. Games. I wish all of them required you to use each pixel to help beat them, instead of just resorting to jumping. Once again, I'm still flipping the screen like crazy. No surprise there. I'm glad that more of the Paper Mario staples still remained, like cooking, catch cards of everything ever, and kinda new partners in the form of pixels. It shows that they respect the legacy of the past Paper Marios. I know it seems minor to appreciate little things like these, but even the small details help define what Paper Mario is as a game, with all of its quirks. I still appreciate that this game continues to throw so many surprises at me. For example, they really had the guts to throw in a dating simulator in a Paper Mario, didn't they? Yep, they really did. I found that entire thing wildly entertaining. I really didn't expect to see Flopside, like, at all. I could not have guessed that an already flipped environment flipped on itself. My brain hurts. Nonetheless, it's just another complexity that fleshes out the world even more. The longer I play through this game, the more I appreciate the digital aesthetic presented. It's such a unique style that isn't even related to paper. Even though the perspective is flattened, these environments are still detailed as ever. Seeing digital staples such as selection boxes, pixel art, and a general boxy art style satisfies someone like me, who likes digital art styles. So do I miss the old battle system? It depends. In terms of originality? Yeah, as much as I praise this game for having the same charm, it still feels like any other platformer. The original formula was so unique yet so robust. It's so redundant to say at this point, but there's a reason why people praise the old battle system so much. The force feedback of action commands will always feel more satisfying than simply jumping on enemies. In terms of convenience, I feel like Super Paper Mario wins on that front. Although the old battle system was more engaging, I admit it can really bog down the pace of the overworld. If you're in a room with several enemies, it would take at least 5 minutes to plow through all of them if you really wanted to. In this game, I didn't really have to think about how to attack them. I mostly resorted to jumping, and if not, it may feel mindless, but it makes the overworld more engaging since you're not dipping in and out of it. But that could be said for any platformer, so I don't know. Halfway in, I still don't hate the new gameplay. I just need to play more of it to have a developed opinion. There is a lot to unpack. Before I get to the ending, let's go through the previous chapters first. The ending of chapter 5 was alright. The concept of plants infecting these Cracknons like zombies was interesting at first, but I wish they could have gone further with the stakes. Maybe inject a hint of survival horror in there. Nothing too crazy for the little kitties, just a little more urgency would have made this chapter a lot more thrilling. If Spider Mimi made it in, I'm sure they can handle a plant apocalypse. They'll be fine. Chapter 7 was the knockout style tournament, or so I thought. When they told me I had to defeat 100 foes, I was like, fine, because the game would make me do that, but instead, thankfully, 20 matches in, the void just snapped the level out of existence. Like, there's nothing left for Miles. Oh, and also this happens. I did not expect things to actually go down. Usually Mario saves the world by a hair from destruction, but no. Mario actually lost and was sent to the underworld. No friends, no pixels, only him. And later on, you have to trek through basically a tower of darkness in order to reach the over there, because you were in the underwear. Haha, I see you, Nintendo. And the over there is clouds, a lot of clouds, and some questionable apples. This segment felt like an eternity because of the verticality of it all. And it doesn't help that it's 80% clouds, 20% Parthenon, and 10% impending doom, so I guess it's memorable for how unnecessarily long it was. I know there was supposed to be this heart-wrenching farewell to Loveby, but honestly I didn't really miss her at all. She was stuck up, ungrateful, and kinda disrespectful the whole time, so And finally, Count Dracula's Castle. Count Bleck's Castle. You'd think that I would have the same grapes as Cloud Tower over there, but I'll give this monochromatic castle points for being at least original enough. Was it just as long and drawn out? Yeah. Fighting the bosses makes sense, but the retread through all the worlds felt unnecessary since all I did was go from point A to point B again. Also, those corridors felt like purgatory. And finally, the final boss battle. Yeah, you just beat them by jumping on their head. But the super secret boss battle, and it's the same thing. Disappointing, but I'm not surprised. Now, up to this point, I've mainly been talking about the events tied to the gameplay. It was becoming clear that the core gameplay of Super Paper Mario wasn't compelling enough. On its own, it's a fine enough platforming adventure, but compared to the old battle system, I admit it does feel watered down, especially towards the end of the game, when I've been defeating the enemies the same way since Chapter 1. I also felt like the worlds easily could have been interconnected instead of partitioning them into separate chapters. If the developers had a little more time, each world could have been fleshed out to the same degree as Flipside and Flopside. The little diversions from the usual gameplay did help make the levels at least a bit more memorable. However, I've gotta give it up for the story. Witnessing the secret past love between Tippy and Count Bleck slowly unfold definitely kept me engaged with the plot. I probably should have seen it from a mile away, but a twist is still a twist. Also, it's kinda heartwarming to see that Count Bleck's minions are willing to stand by him even when he's down and out. I appreciate when a story drops little hints to later events, even if they were a bit on the nose. You'd be surprised how many video game plots have zero surprises in them. But I never trusted Dementio, and I was right. He was bad all along. And I'm so glad that Luigi was more involved in the story more than ever, especially in Paper Mario, where he was notoriously casted aside to his own little world. But now he was directly involved in the story and is even part of the main cast. Good for him. I had a hunch that Tippy and Count Bleck were inevitably gonna end up together, but I didn't expect that they were gonna disappear on us in the end, in the name of love. Like, they were gone. But it felt like a satisfying conclusion that made everyone happy in the end. Yay! However, I did not see a single Yoshi throughout the entire adventure. I searched far and wide for the dinosaur and all I get is a sad excuse for a rock formation. I mean, what is a Paper Mario game without the Yoshi? Where's the outrage? You know what? I'm gonna start my own. Maybe if y'all ugly sand Yoshi. I suspected that there wasn't that much more to do after the main story. Well, objectively, there are a lot of things to complete, such as unlocking all the recipes, cards, and maps, and of course, clearing the Pit of 100 Trials, a notoriously tedious marathon of defeating enemy after enemy. Now, I don't usually have the patience to complete something like this, but just for the sake of the video, I decided to trek through it. I know, what a brave soul. It wasn't as bad as I thought, except these ninja things. Those things can cease to exist, and all I got was another pixel that just made me go faster. Yeah, I didn't need this, especially after the main adventure. But whatever, at least I did it. The game did this cute thing where it wanted me to do it again in Flopside but harder, and I was like, no. I felt like that was a good stopping point. There were still some mysteries I had yet to uncover, but I didn't want to spoil myself. Maybe I'll come back to it, maybe not. If this was one of the only games I had, I would have probably invested more time into the post-game. I'd most likely grind for coins at the arcade because those minigames were legitimately fun. What can I say? The spirit of Mario Party lives on. And that was Super Paper Mario. Final verdict? I liked it. Nothing more, nothing less. I had a good time while I was playing, but sadly it didn't leave as huge of a mark as the first two Paper Marios, which might be an unfair comparison, but when the core gameplay is fundamentally a 2D platformer and not a turn-based RPG, you're gonna vibe with different elements. Thankfully, people were right when they said that the story was the best part of the game. It's not mind-blasting, but the story struck a nice balance between the staple humor of classic Paper Mario and a genuinely gripping story with stakes. I'd say that the flipping mechanic was developed enough to justify being there. It at least differentiated this game from traditional Mario games and hid some nice secrets. The difficulty was much lower than expected, but that means I would most likely replay this one before the other Paper Marios, because as great as those games are, I need a good few years before I'm in the mood to replay them. Is it cliche to give a rating? Probably, but I'm still gonna do it. I give Super Paper Mario a 5 out of 7 eggs, I suppose. A solid Paper Mario experience, but not exactly what I wanted. It was interesting to log my progress and witness how my thoughts evolved as I played further. I might try this again sometime if I'm willing to splurge on a new game, which probably won't be for a while. Let me know what you think of Super Paper Mario, and I hope my overview didn't offend anyone out there, somehow. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you later? Sure. Okay. Bye. Seriously, where's Yoshi?